When is the rent due? How do I collect the rent? When should I start an eviction? These are all common questions by property owners. I'm Kyle at True Property Management. Let's talk about late rent. The lease agreement sets the terms for when rent is late. There's a lot of variations out there, so please read the lease contract carefully. Most leases are going to have the rent set to be due on the first day of the month. That means January rent is due on January 1st. That means on January 2nd, the rent is late. Tenants should get in the habit of paying rent early, near the end of the prior month, because rent is technically late after the first day of the month. The law has no grace period, but most leases do charge a late fee if the rent is paid after the third day of the month. For example, rent is due January 1st. It's late if not paid on the 1st. Then a late fee will be applied to the tenant if not paid by midnight on January 3rd. Typical late fees range from 5% to 10% of the rent. As the property owner, you should have a standard procedure for when a tenant doesn't pay. Here's what we do. On the morning of the 4th, if the tenant hasn't paid the rent, we call, text, and email the tenant notifying them that the late fee has been applied to their account and that the rent is late. We will contact them every day that rent is unpaid until the 8th. On the 8th day, we post a 3-day notice to pay or quit. This is a legal notice informing the tenant that we will start an eviction if they don't pay within 3 business days. The goal here is to get into contact and have communication with the tenant. If there's no communication, that's a sign that things are going to go poorly. Now, the tenant's going to tell you their excuses. You can be empathetic, but also you need to set expectations and communicate clearly what happens if you post a 3-day notice and the 3 days expire. We have found that 99% of tenants will pay without having to do an eviction. There is a difference between a tenant that has one late payment and a tenant that continually pays late. A tenant that consistently pays on time but communicates that the rent this month will be late is not a big problem if it only happens once and there's a lot of communication about the issue. Now, a tenant that repeats late payments is a problem. In this situation, I recommend following my suggested procedure by contacting the tenant daily until the rent is paid. Then on the 8th day, post a 3-day notice to pay or quit. After the 3 days expire, start an unlawful detainer action, also known as an eviction. Since we're on the topic of collecting rent, let me give you a few other recommendations. Don't accept cash, and I encourage you to arrange electronic payments only. This is much faster and safer than accepting checks. Accepting checks can cause a lot of problems with bounce checks and time delays in the mail. You also need to keep an accounting of your rent collection. This becomes important if you ever need to do an eviction. And really important is that you communicate from the beginning the expectations of rent. So when the renter moves in, it sounds something like this. I'm really happy you decided to make this your home. I'd like to get the relationship started off by reviewing the lease agreement to make sure we're on the same page and avoid any misunderstandings. The first section is about rent. Rent is due on the first day of the month and late any day after. Now, there is a late fee applied on the 4th day, so please arrange to make your payments early to avoid the late fee. If you have any questions about this topic or anything else, please ask me in the comments. I'm Kyle at True Property Management, providing 5-star results backed by our guarantees, making you more money with less drama.